How do you find peace when everything is falling apart around you? How do you stay calm when your enemies are plotting to destroy you? How do you remain steady when you have to pretend to be insane just to survive? 3,000 years ago, a man discovered a method so powerful for maintaining inner peace that even today, it's known only to the most devoted scholars of the Bible. A method documented in 3 Psalms, written during the darkest moments of his life. I'm talking about King David. And today, for the first time, we'll analyze these 3 Psalms to reveal his shocking 3-part method for finding unshakable inner peace. What you're about to discover in this video will forever change the way you look at the Bible. And no, I'm not talking about the usual religious interpretations you've always heard. What I'm about to show you is something completely different. The first Psalm. It's around 1000 BC, and David, who the prophet Samuel anointed as the future king of Israel, suddenly finds himself having to do the unthinkable. To save his life, he must pretend to be completely insane. He begins to act like a madman in front of his enemies, letting drool run down his beard. But it's in this exact moment, when everyone thinks he's lost his mind, that David writes something extraordinary. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. Think about this for a moment. While outwardly, he's pretending to have lost his senses, inwardly, he's writing some of the most lucid words imaginable. My soul will make its boast in the Lord. The humble will hear it and rejoice. But it's what David writes right after this that reveals something even deeper. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Notice the progression here. He doesn't say, the Lord delivered me, so then I sought him. No, he says, I sought, and then I was delivered. While he's pretending to be mad, David is documenting the first step of his method. Action comes before deliverance. Look to him and be radiant, and your faces will never be ashamed. But here's the most surprising part of all. David isn't just writing about his personal experience. He shifts from I sought to look to him, from a personal testimony to a universal invitation. This poor man cried out, and the Lord heard him and saved him from all his troubles. In a moment when everyone thinks he's lost his mind, David is revealing the first key to finding inner peace. But what happens next, when he's actually captured by his enemies, brings out an even deeper truth. The second Psalm. David has been captured. Now he's a prisoner among his enemies, isolated, surrounded by hostility, with no escape. The situation looks hopeless. Everyone sees him as an enemy, a hunted man. Fear should consume him. Anguish should break him. And yet in this darkness, something unexplainable happens. Instead of surrendering to panic, David gathers himself and writes words that defy human logic. When I am afraid, I will put my trust in you. As captivity tries to crush his spirit, David discovers a new inner resource. He doesn't deny his fear, but he transforms it into something more powerful. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, I will not be afraid. Think about this for a moment. David acknowledges his fear. He doesn't ignore it. But at the same time, he marries it with trust. He's not simply saying to have faith. He's making an active choice to trust even when fear is overwhelming. will not be afraid. Why? Because I trust. And here, we find the second part of his method. Facing fear, not by denying it, but through active trust. David shows us that inner peace isn't about the absence of fear. It's about the ability to transform that fear into an act of trust. Even while bound in chains, completely vulnerable, he's able to say, I trust in you. I will not be afraid because I trust. This is a crucial step. David doesn't let his fear consume him, but uses it as a bridge to find strength in God. This second part of his method isn't about promising shallow peace. It's about total transformation. But while David wrestles with terror and finds strength in trust, another phase, even deeper, awaits him as he continues his escape into the depths of a solitary cave. The third Psalm, David has managed to escape, but his freedom is fragile. Now he's hiding in a cave, alone, hunted, carrying the weight of an uncertain fate on his shoulders. The silence around him is oppressive. He's completely alone. In that moment, every bit of security seems to crumble. And right there, David writes words that reveal the final part of his method. There are no enemies in sight, no one directly threatening him. Yet in that solitude, David faces the most insidious enemy of all, himself, his troubled spirit. I cry aloud to the Lord. I plead aloud to the Lord for mercy. In that moment of despair, David holds nothing back. He cries out his suffering to God without shame, without reserve. And here, we uncover an unexpected aspect of his method: total vulnerability. I pour out my complaint before him. I tell my trouble before him. Picture this scene. David, a strong and courageous man, stripped bare in his emotions, no mask. He lays out his pain like an offering. It's a moment of surrender, of absolute honesty, embracing vulnerability. The third step in David's method is neither escape nor strength. It's complete openness, entrusting his raw emotions to God without resistance, without hiding anything. David shows us that inner peace isn't just about overcoming hardship. It's about being willing to acknowledge every emotion without pretending to be invulnerable. The Lord is my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. At the end of the psalm, David reveals the final key. Recognizing God as his only refuge, even in the deepest solitude. This total surrender, this acceptance of vulnerability, completes his path to a peace that transcends all fear. With the third psalm, David has completed his inner journey. But it's now, as we connect these three moments, that his method is revealed in all its power. The revelation of the method. We've journeyed together through three extreme moments in David's life: the threat of death, captivity, and the deepest loneliness. In each of these moments, David wrote words that not only reflected his state of mind, but also concealed a surprising method for finding inner peace. Now, as we put these three stages together, David's method is revealed in all its power. The first step: action comes before deliverance. When David was facing the threat of death, he didn't wait for his fear to disappear. He acted with determination. He sought the Lord before he was delivered, showing that the first step toward inner peace is intentional action, even when it feels difficult. The second step: trust within fear. David didn't deny his fear when he was a prisoner. Instead, he chose to trust God precisely in that moment. He transformed his fear into a display of faith. Inner peace isn't about the absence of fear, but the choice to trust, even when fear feels overpowering. And finally, the third step: total vulnerability. In the solitude of the cave, David opened up completely to God, without masks. He didn't hide his pain or try to appear invulnerable. He found peace by accepting his weakness and recognizing God as his only safe refuge. It's in this complete surrender that he discovered true serenity. These 3 steps: action, trust, and vulnerability form David's complete method. It's not a technique for avoiding suffering, but a path that transforms every challenge into an opportunity for inner growth. And so, David's method reveals itself, not just as a guide to finding peace in difficult times, but as an open invitation to live with faith and authenticity. David shows us that true inner peace isn't something we gain without struggle. It's an achievement that we reach by confronting our fears and vulnerabilities. But the journey doesn't end here. The Psalms contain other secrets, other paths that can lead us to an even deeper understanding of our spirituality and our relationship with the divine. The journey we've taken today has allowed us to see David's life from a unique perspective, not only as a king or warrior, but as a man who, in his darkest moments, found a way to keep peace in his heart. And this method, discovered through the Psalms, isn't just a theoretical lesson. It's a guide that anyone can apply, no matter their background or circumstances. The Bible, with its stories and its words, offers us powerful tools to face today's challenges. It's not just an ancient text, but a living source, able to speak to us and help us find answers to our deepest questions. David's Psalms are a remarkable example of how Scripture can teach us to find refuge, strength, and serenity in times of trial. David's teaching is an open invitation to anyone who seeks to grow in their faith and to discover a peace that goes beyond circumstances. We end this episode with a simple yet profound thought. Inner peace is not a gift for a few, but a promise for anyone willing to seek it. And as we've seen in David's method, the steps are there, ready to be followed. We'll continue this journey, exploring more valuable teachings from the Bible to discover together how it can guide us in every aspect of our spiritual lives.